Presenting Channeling Erik's Hour of Enlightenment.
Hello, everybody. I made the grave mistake of using my Wi-Fi to a different thing, and now I'm having to use my cell phone to talk to you guys. But it's my fault. I didn't learn from the last time this happened, so I should have stuck with the. But the signal is better on this one I'm using now. Still, it should have been good enough. But whatever. So, hi, Michelle Gray at thehealing-art.com. How you doing?
Hello, Elisa at AtlantisScalar.com. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. And how's my boy Erik? I love you. We worked so hard today, man, in the scalar field. So hard.
He said yes, we did. And he's got looks like he's got grease on his pants, like he's been working under a hood, and he's got some sweat on his brow because he's wiping his forehead. Yes, we did.
It's not easy work. Today was really more difficult, but still very rewarding. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me or that kind of stuff. We're here to talk about communication and the power of listening. What? Listening? What? I need my husband in here right now. But anyway. So basically, Erik talks about the importance of communication and the power of listening. So, my love, Erik, I love you so much. You got the mic. Go for it.
He says, thanks, Mama. He goes, I love you too. He says, I love you so much. He says, I love you to the moon and back and the moon and back again. I love you so much. And he says, communication in a couple of different ways. When we talk about communication, with our family, he says communication with spirit. He says all of these things are so extremely important. But he said now that we're really stepping into holiday season, and we're getting together with family or friends, even when we're having communication with people that we work with, our neighbors, any kind of communication, he says, with so many changes that are happening in the world as well, he says, whether it's in our lives personally or in the world, meaning all of the many changes that we could go into that we know we're experiencing, but he said that it is so important that we learn how to clearly communicate our needs, our what it is that we need for ourselves, what it is that we want to get across, but also that we're really good listeners. And that's something that, I never really thought about a lot before in my past, I can sadly say, because I was one of those people that I would get so excited about what somebody was saying, or I'd start to think about my next sentence. I'd already been into the reply.
Me too.
And I'd miss, right? Yeah.
And if you have ADHD, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's like you're so anxious to put in your rebuttals. So it's like I'm guilty of that too. I'm trying to get better. But.
Yeah. And part of it was that I was afraid I was going to forget what I was going to say a lot of times. I'd get excited. And I had so much going on in my brain that I would lose my train of thought, and then I'd go to speak and I'd forget. So I would kind of jump in and start talking, and it drove other people crazy, and it kind of drove me crazy too, because I was kind of aware of how annoying that was. So something I worked on was being a good listener, and that's something Erik has really helped me with, to really communicate with our ears and to communicate with our eyes with listening. And what he says is there's a lot of power in listening, because when we start to slow things down and we actually make a practice out of hearing somebody. So if we're sitting across from somebody, he says, what are you doing? Are you daydreaming into other things? Are you thinking about what you're going to, what the rebuttal is, what you're going to say next? Or are you really listening to what this person has to say? Are you practicing empathy? Are you standing in that person's shoes and really seeing what it feels like if they're telling you something really important. Are you really listening to the details? Because he says a lot of times when we slow ourselves down and we actually listen, we're going to catch things that we might not have heard before. And he says that when we're really good at communicating by practicing, and we're really good at the listening component, he says we'll find that we'll have less arguments, less disagreements. But there's things to that too. He says, you have to practice some other things. Like, for example, like we were just saying, he says, slow down, have patience. He says, don't be in such a rush. Don't be in such a ruch to answer. So wait until somebody has finished before you go on to whatever you're going to say.
Wait. Start all over again. What are you talking about? I'm kidding.
Like, did you not hear me, Lisa? Were you not listening? That was funny. That kind of caught me there for a second. But you got me. But he also says, too, here's the interesting thing now, and I thought this is really good, but he says, so when we get around family get-togethers or friend get-togethers, or we get into maybe projects that get busy around Christmas time and we're working with other people, whether they be in our family or our peers or what have you, he says we can really get overcommitted. And so he says, so think of like somebody invites you to this and invites you to that, or asks you, can you bring this, can you do this? And he says, and what tends to happen is we say, okay, and we don't get that clarity on what exactly is being expected of us or what all the details are. And he says, so what happens is during this holiday period, we can get, anytime really, but particularly now, he says we can really get overburdened easily, and that creates a lot more stress for us. And on top of that, we don't fulfill our commitments to people because we're committing to things that maybe we didn't fully understand or maybe we didn't really want to do in the first place. So we get into this, right. He says we get into these little pickles where we're, kind of like ducking and putting things off and making excuses, which makes us feel bad. Other people pick up on that. So he says, what do we do about that? Well, he says the number one thing is do not commit to something that you don't fully understand. So ask questions. If you're being given information.
Can you give us an example?
So he says, for example, if somebody's saying, we're thinking about getting together for this holiday dinner and, we were going to have everybody bring something, and would you be willing to bring something because you supply the meal or the, whatever that thing is, but you're not getting any detail. You don't know what the date is. You don't know. And all of a sudden somebody on their end of the deal is thinking that you're definitely coming and you're supplying the turkey. And you've overcommitted yourself and you just said you're going to bring something, but you don't really know when it's going to be, and you don't know for how many people. And now you've overwhelmed yourself because you've already committed to 5 other things. That's just a simple example. But Erik also says, like projects, you get into maybe doing something with somebody else, participating in something, and you agree to helping them out with a task or a project, and you're not really asking what's entailed of that task. Is there travel involved? Is there cost involved? He says all of these little details, these are things that can pop up when they're not being fully communicated. So he says you have to be an advocate for yourself and ask these questions. And if those questions can't be answered, then don't commit to it. He says do yourself a favor and say, when you can give me this information. He says know what you need and communicate that clearly. Make sure it's known. Now he says with these type of things that are for text, for example, he says when you're making arrangements and you're participating in things, texting is actually something that's really good because we can go back and we can read what we said.
That's true.
So he says think of it as a like a contract, a little contract that we're making with people. so that we can do it that way. But he says, here's what texting is not good for: emotional conversations. He says, yes, there are times that we text with people because it's convenient. But he says, if you can avoid having an emotional conversation or saying something that has a lot of emotional weight to it, try to avoid using text as the way, unless you really have no other choice.
There's so many nuances to emotions that it's very difficult to convey that via text.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
The tone of voice, you have so many aspects of conveying emotional communication.
Yes. Yes, that's right, because he says that, there's a lot within our body, our facial expression, our tone, everything. So he says you want to try and have those communications, if anything, over the phone, so that you can communicate with voice, with sound. But if you can have a conversation that has emotional weight to it face-to-face, that really is the best way, because you're able to have eye contact and you're able to, lean in and use your body language to be able to express yourself. And he says it takes practice to be able to be, because he says, here's the other point: when you're communicating, no matter what you're doing, be honest. Be as clear and as honest as you can be, because the burden of not being clear and honest, or of holding something back, and he says you have to also know what you want. So communication starts with us, he says. Communication starts to make sure that we're communicating with ourselves to understand what it is that we do need. So if we are participating in something, or we are, making an arrangement with somebody, if we are communicating in our relationships about what it is that we require, he says we have to actually know what that is. And so express that as honestly as you possibly can.
Right. What I is that, when you were talking, Erik, about listening, but also using your ears, but also using your eyes. And I did an experiment a long time ago where I went through the drive-through in McDonald's and ordered chicken nuggets for my kids or whatever. And I didn't really I looked at their face and not at them. And it was a completely different reaction than when I actually looked at their eyes, like the window to their souls. And I got a completely different, deeper reaction. So you really need to see that person on a soul level when you communicate to them. It's very important, in my opinion.
That is so true. And, I've had an experience, Erik has taught that to me, where he says when you're speaking to somebody and you're speaking to a stranger, he says speak to them in the eyes. Look at them in the eyes. So it's interesting that you say that, Elisa, because I had an experience today where I bought a coffee in a drive-through window, and the girl that was in the drive-through, she was having a really hard time. She was flustered, and there were some errors made, and she was punching in the wrong orders, and she was getting really upset, thinking that I was upset. And I hadn't even spoken to her yet. And so I looked at her right in the eyes, and I grabbed my coffee, and I said, thank you very much. I said, have a better day. It'll be okay. And she looked directly at me in the eyes, and just as you're saying that, the difference when you make eye contact with somebody and say your words, it really is, because you could see the relief in her face just to know that, okay, you know what, it's not a big deal. It's like so much can be said with eyes and the way that we focus on somebody. So that is so true.
Eyes and your ears when you're communicating with people then.
That's right. He just wants to take a minute to talk about self-communication as well. Okay. He says, as we were saying before, the communication with ourselves, being able to, he says this goes into self-love. And we've talked a lot about how important it is to work on the appreciation of ourselves and on our self-love, on our self-worth. And so he says to communicate clearly with ourselves, he says, make sure that we are participating in daily practices of self-care. And he says that is how we, vibrationally, he says when we have good energetic health, when we have daily practices of self-care such as could be affirmations is an example of that. Things that make us feel good, things that help take care of our energy. Could be a nice clearing bath. It could be music. But it's also listening to what our priorities are and prioritizing them. And to take that time to do it is an act of self-love, and it's an act of communication. And we may need to actually sit down, he says, and take out a piece of paper and list what it is that's important to you. What do you want to prioritize in your life? And this doesn't mean what the world thinks is important for you to do, what your neighbor thinks is important for you to do. Yes. He says this means this is what you feel is important. And having maybe 10 minutes to yourself in the morning with a good cup of coffee might be the most important thing for you that's going to help set your day. And so you prioritize that. So it's really important, he says, that you set yourself up for success. That way you're allowing yourself to have this clear communication, and it gives you the experience to trust what you feel is best for you so that you're trusting and communicating with you. Because he says a lot of times we have the voices of so many other people communicating with us even when we're not with them. And he says that's just the same as that they're standing there talking in your ear. So he says you want to be able to hear yourself, communicate with yourself, know yourself, because it is that helps direct you to have a better experience that is aligned to you. The other thing he says is for clear communication is working with the chakras, because being able to clear our chakras, to be able to, this is back to energetic health, he says, to be able to align our chakras and everything, that creates clarity. And when we have clarity,
I was gonna ask something like that. Like, suppose you have to communicate something really important the next day to a friend, family member, a coworker, your boss. What can we do? Are there crystals we can use? And if so, what do we do with them? Where do we put them? Are there tones? I mean, what can we use to better our chances of communicating well?
Well, so spiritually, he says, so when we're working with being able to communicate, so communication is in the throat chakra. So he says there's a couple things that we can do. So he says it's actually throat chakra, and depending on what it is that we're doing, if we're working with emotions or we're working with in relationship, he says often the sacral, the heart, and the throat. The throat being the most important because it's expression. So we're expressing ourselves. What can you do? He says, well, you can use color therapy, the color blue, for the throat chakra, for communication. He says we can also use frequency and sound. He says that there's different frequencies, and he's saying 427 is a frequency that we can use. And he says you can meditate to it. You can also listen to it. Says you visualize a conversation with somebody. He says one great way to communicate is knowing exactly what it is that you're trying to get across. Saying what you mean, meaning what you say. And so the practice of visualization and speaking in visualization allows you to manifest that conversation. Because he says, just like when we're going in for a job interview or anything else like that, he says, do you see yourself walking in the door and sitting down and shaking the hand and answering questions? So he says, do that when you're going to have some sort of communication with somebody the next day. The other thing is, too, is he says there's other things that help clear us up. Clear quartz. Clear quartz, he said. He's just adding the crystal. Clear quartz is a good one for communication as well. But he says,
so what do we do with it?
He says that
put it in our pocket, hold it in our hand.
You can put it. Yes, you can put it in your pocket. You can hold it in your hand. He says, and remember too, crystals work really well with our intention. So, what intention are you putting into the crystal? He says, are you speaking into the crystal? You can put your intentions in there and charge that crystal up. He says, another thing is wash the crystal. Make sure the crystal is clean. So is it clean and clear for clean and clear communication? He says, have you know, if you're going to put your crystal out in the sun or in the moonlight, any of those type of practices, he goes, all of those things will help spiritually align you for clear communication.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, what about communication with spirit? Is there anything differently we need to do about that compared to, you know, the speaking to living peeps?
Well, he says, you know, with spirit communication, he says it's actually right now that communication and ability to communicate is really high right now because we are becoming more and more aware. We're vibrationally shifting. And so we have the ability to communicate stronger than we ever did before. Communication is also really important for spirit communication too. But the other thing is paying attention to communication signs, because spirit may be communicating with birds, with butterflies, with dimes, with feathers, with music, with the lyrics. And so he said, you know, are you listening? Are you watching? Are you paying attention? Because with spirit communication, he says, think of it as a friendship. You know, if you're developing a friendship, it's a two-way street. And he says, and it may not be equal, meaning in the way that we're communicating with each other, but if you're not paying attention or you're not picking up on how you're being communicated with, then it's not going to go to the next level because you're not paying attention to what's already happening. So he says if you can pick up on the signs of what's happening right now, that's going to help develop your communication because the message is coming across that, okay, so they see what I'm doing. They see what I do. They know it's happening. So whatever subtleties are happening in your reality right now, when you start to pick up on it and trust, it will grow. So by practicing that awareness and asking, he says, communication is not just sitting and waiting for it to happen. He says, ask, show me a butterfly, show me a bird.
Yes. Right.
He says, ask us, and we will do that. He says, but keep your expectations open, of course, to say, well, don't say, show me a bird at 12 o'clock noon that's going to land on the top of this building, and then I'll know for sure it's you. He goes, be open.
No.
He says, show me a bird.
Boy, Dan. You don't want that. Right.
No.
Okay, so there's a lot of people out there, you know, in the CE community and the AS community that are estranged from relatives and friends. So what could they do? And they want to open up the communication again. Any advice, Erik? Because it's so painful.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary, okay? Sometimes you need to get these people out of your life, but maybe there are some instances where, you know, it's not necessary and not advisable even. So what?
Well, he says, you know, each situation is going to have an individual, individually what's going on. And sometimes communication isn't happening for purpose of protection. Maybe, you know, there's things that have to take place, whether there's a lesson that's happening for one or the other. But he says, let's say we're talking about the scenario where there's desired communication and maybe there's been an argument. Maybe there hasn't been conversation for a period of time, and you're really feeling like you'd like to work towards that being changed. So he says one really good place to start is to start with some self-reflection and kind of look at, you know, not too much. He says don't dwell on it too much, but look at what has been and maybe what your participation was. Because he says part of communication with somebody that you've not spoken to is when there's a closed up energy or closed mind is when blame is strictly being put on the other side. It can make it very hard to be able to receive. So he says, spend a little time in reflection. And he says that might mean some journaling or go for a walk, kind of talk to your higher self. He says, and start to open up that communication in that way, because energetically is where everything starts. Energetically, when we start to have acceptance and we accept that this has taken place, I can't change what the past has been. I can't change what's already occurred, but I can change how I start to look towards today and my future with this person. And he says, and go into it with, is it possible that you're able to have a conversation with them? Can you send them a card? Can you send them a letter? Can you send them a text, a telephone call? If those things are not possible, he says, then start with writing a letter to their higher self. Start with a communication where you're pulling in their higher self and have them right in front of you and energetically speak to their heart. Energetically speak from your heart to theirs. Because remember, we are all connected. And he says that truly you are speaking directly into their energy. And that will, he calls it like priming. That will help prime the energy for what is to come. And he says, we can't always control these circumstances because we can't control what somebody else has done or what they're doing, but we can control our relation to it. So he says that we have a choice each day. And, Erik we were just talking to somebody else, another client, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and he had some very painful communication with a son, and there was a grandchild born, and he had never met his grandchild and was just devastated. And Erik was just explaining that there was some very difficult things going on with the son, and it wasn't time for it to happen yet. But in this case, Erik suggested to speak to the higher self and to use that as a journaling process, and that he would start to see signs in the reality of his son starting to come around. And what he said was, to not have expectation of how that would be, some sort of communication that would start to take place when the time was right. And that can be hard because when we're in so much pain, Erik says, we want to get out of that pain. We want to reunite with those that we love. We want to make things better again. But he says that part of the process is being okay with where it is right now and knowing that we're doing all we can from our end of things, and to know and put our energy into the hopes that the opportunities will come forth for us to be able to have communication with them again.
I remember in one radio show, this mother was very upset because her daughter-in-law, after her son's death, wouldn't speak to her, and I think it was actually after her son's death, the daughter-in-law gave birth to a child and would not speak to her, etc. And so we gave, through Erik, the advice that, what? Come from a place where I would love to be a part of your child's life. I love you, and if there's anything I can do, and the whole thing was just so cathartic for the daughter-in-law. Yeah. She was so happy that she had, a grandmother for her child that could help out and all that stuff. So, sometimes you can be surprised. Anything else you want to say before we start to talk?
Well, Erik just wants to add, he says, Mom, he goes, that's exactly right, because, when our feelings have been hurt or we've not had conversation with somebody or there's been something really difficult take place, it's, sometimes very challenging because we can get in our head and start to think, have an assumption of what's coming from that other person. And it's important that we don't carry assumptions and that we really do speak from the heart, as honest as we can be. And that's why it's important to come from ourselves first, to really look at where we're at first, and to come from a place of love. Because love really is the healer of all things. Love really is the highest vibration.
Absolutely.
And when we put love towards anything and everything, that is the very best we can give. And so he says that we will be surprised when we put love forward. It can really break down barriers.
Into our communication, like this one grandmother did.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that daughter-in-law probably thought, oh, she's a bitch. She probably tried to turn my husband against me. But no, I mean, she led with love. She was really afraid to do it, okay? But this radio show gave her the courage to do that, and it changed everything. It was such a relief, for all parties, and so much better for the child. Anything else, Eric, before we take callers?
No, Erik says, Mom, he just hopes that everybody, for all those that are feeling kind of out of place with their communication with family, and to really set aside what has been and to really look forward with love. Be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it's powerful.
Yeah. Go aside, people, especially in this time of gratitude and of Thanksgiving. Just lead your life in love and not fear, and it's many facets. So,
that's right.
A lot. Yeah,
that's right.
All right. So I've got one question I want to ask for somebody who is in Pakistan. So I can't really. I mean, she's tried so hard to get through. Catherine Smith, her brother, I don't know, has a brain tumor several years now and should be dead. It's in the base of the head and not easy to reach. Great, and they can't biopsy it. They could, but this guy's afraid. So we don't even know if it's malignant or not. Have been getting him healing for years, which hopefully has helped to keep him alive, as he has 3 small children and they live in Pakistan. So they will starve without their dad. I send them what I can when possible. Can you ask Erik what scalar services would be best for Asghar, Asghar, Ali in Pakistan to get rid of his brain tumor? And what's the tumor? Can you tell me a little bit about the tumor, Erik?
Well, what Erik is showing me is it's cancerous. But it's, I don't know if you can maybe explain this, but it's pressing up against something.
Yes. Yeah, several years. I can't imagine that it's malignant. It sounds more like a meningioma or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
and they said it was inoperable because he's showing it to me like a growth.
Right.
Like on top of a nerve, or where there's blood, because there's a lot of blood behind it.
Okay.
To forgiveness, and so there's some resistance to change. He's saying the energy protection repair.
Okay. The main service?
Yes, and okay, just wait, there's something else here too. There's because Erik says there's some past life energy that's connected to this, and it has to do with how he had an exit in another lifetime, and he's talking about it having a lot of trauma, like bludgeon right in the back of the head, being hit in the back of the head. And Erik's connecting like forgiveness, like betrayal. So having betrayal, like somebody had, like Erik's giving me the example of like being stabbed in the back, but he was actually hit in the back of the head. And I can see him going right over a cliff, like being knocked right off a cliff.
Oh, gosh.
And so he's connecting that in this lifetime. So there is some energy of forgiveness in this lifetime. Erik is also saying, so that's a scalar service, but he, hypnosis, like quantum hypnosis, having some of that as well to help break up.
that?
which is Courtney Dillon. He's showing Courtney Dillon.
Okay. CourtneyDillon.com. That's great.
Yes.
But yeah, the main service, the energy repair, protection, and enhancement, does help block a bleed through from other lives. So that certainly could be one component. Well, thank you so much. Is there hope for him?
Change. There's change for him.
Oh, that's good.
So
positive.
He's at a point where there's change. There's some resistance there, so the service will help him with resistance as well, and being able to have because speaking to somebody, Erik says, is important, because there's some talking that needs to be done, like some talking that he needs to work through, and that's going to help him make the changes necessary emotionally, but energetically. The ERP, that's going to be the best service for him.
But he's probably not going to be able to talk to, it's probably a language problem, not problem, but I mean, so Courtney or somebody will have to, work with his higher self, I think.
And that's fine. That's fine. That can be done as well. But there has to be some, if he's able to have some understanding, or whoever is speaking on his behalf, to assist. Yeah.
All right, we got somebody from the 646 area code. Hi there, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Elisa. And this is a question for Erik. So my name is Carla.
Hi, Carla.
I'm looking for homes. Hi. I'm looking for homes, and I saw something online that I got a little excited about. So I called the listing agent and asked for an appointment. And right away she started talking to me about, like, well, I want you to know that the seller is very picky and will not accept any offers less than a certain amount, and blah, 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 blah. And we've had offers before, but she refused. Yes, it was like all of a sudden, like, I mean, all I asked was to see the house and set up an appointment, and she's talking to me about price. So I'm just wondering, like, was that just like a tactic to make me pay more? I mean, have they actually gotten offers, or?
Oh, it sounds like it, but I don't know. Erik, what do you think?
Erik says,
yeah, I just want to know.
Erik says to persevere. Yeah. He says, don't let those words stop you. He says, you go ahead and go through, because is there other offers? Yeah, there's other people that look at it, and the real estate agent, it doesn't want to field offers that aren't close enough in his mind, but he's just saying, don't let that stop you.
Okay.
There's a change in the environment.
Is the real estate agent trying to manipulate price-wise?
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
A little bit. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to know, is there room for negotiation? Because from what I can see from the pictures, I haven't seen the house yet. I will, but it seems like it needs a lot of work. It's pretty dated, so I feel like it's priced too high in my opinion, and I just want to know, if will they come down and understand that it needs work?
But the market is yes, because rates are so high. I mean, it's a buyer's market, man.
So
go ahead,
yeah,
Erik,
I know, but so Erik, what is
Erik says you already have an idea in your mind, and he goes, so persevere with what you're saying, keep going forward with what you're saying. He says, don't let somebody tell you that the offer that you're making is going to not even be shown to them. He says, don't listen to that, because if there's somebody else that they have an idea in their head that's going to buy it, that's not going to get it. There's something financial that's going to fall through. So he says, just keep going. And there is a change in your environment coming, so you will get a place.
Awesome.
All
right.
So
thanks for calling, Carla. Oh, and let us know. We'll go to the housewarming party. Yeah. Okay, so we have 805 area code. Hi there, how you doing?
Great, real good. I've been intermittent fasting, 23-hour fast every day, and I'm on my 7th week, and I feel the best I've ever felt in my life.
Wow. I have done that, and let me tell you, it's easier than people think. Once you get over the hunger, it's like, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm hungry, but I'm going to wait. and then all of a sudden, your whole cellular metabolism resets, and you're not always hungry anymore. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
good
great.
for you.
I just love it. Yeah. I wanted to ask Erik about me meeting someone now that I feel so good.
Now that you love yourself, how you look and who you are. Yes.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
Now that you love yourself for how you are.
Yes.
It's a perfect opportunity. But go ahead, Erik.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
Well, Erik just says that that's this cycle that you're moving into right now has to do with connection. He says there's some forgiveness. I don't know if there's some forgiveness work that you have done or some forgiveness from the past that he says is assisting in this next cycle. But yeah, he says he's calling like this next chapter like your rainbow, your mate, your connection. So next cycle, so he's giving a 6-month period. So he's saying 6. I just said 6 weeks. So between now and 6 months, there's somebody coming.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do about the forgiveness aspect of this? Anything? Is that a requirement?
He's saying that she's already So was this from a past relationship? Because he said this is something that you've kind of already been working through.
Yes, I've worked through it. Yeah.
So that's why this is on the way.
So is she done with that, Erik?
Yeah.
Is she done with that?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes. And he said that this
awesome.
what she's doing right now and working on herself and everything, that's the self-love. And he goes, that's the component that brings it in. To forgive and keep working on yourself, and you bring in that vibration into your life.
Love it. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks for calling. Oh, I feel so happy for her. Good for her. I mean, it takes a lot of strength. I'm so proud of her. And people think that intermittent fasting is difficult. Actually, if you could just go through the hunger and say, okay, I'm going to wait 10 minutes. I'm going to wait 10 minutes, etc. It actually gets to where you're not hungry anymore, and it resets the whole cellular metabolism, and it's all about insulin. It's not about calories versus calorie expenditure through exercise. It is not. It's about insulin response to ingested carbohydrates. That's all it is. It's about insulin resistance, and you can only get rid of that with intermittent fasting. Read, and you can actually get a summary of this if you Google the obesity code, and just read the summary. It's freaking amazing, and it's the answer. All right, we've got somebody from.
And do you know who this one is?
925 area code. Hi there. How you doing? Hi there.
Hello.
Hi. What's your name, and how can we help you?
Hi. Am I on air?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't hear. My name's Kristen, and I've called
Kristen,
before, but now I have a question. I'm doing good.
Awesome.
I have a question about, I just got a job. I wasn't really looking, but it just kind of fell into my lap, and I decided to take it, and so now, but now I'm nervous and just wondering if it's the right place for me.
So Erik is saying this is like a milestone. So it may not seem like that, but it's actually marking something in your life. And can I just ask you, does this have anything to do with parenting or kids of some sort?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. He's bringing up children, like showing me children. So did you have another question about children too? Because he keeps showing me children with you.
Well, mostly just I had called last time about my child, and then wondering how.
Okay.
Oh, maybe
the one
that's it.
who was kind of
that
one who was kind of struggling.
Okay. Because what he wants me to tell you, so the job is fine. The job is fine. He says that this is good, but he's talking about a milestone, and this is towards your child. like there being a positive milestone.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that, I don't know.
Well, there's a shift that's taking place, and sometimes when these things come up that are unexpected, what Erik has taught me is that when things come up that are unexpected, sometimes there's a shift in energy that's taking place, and we may not always see or understand why that's happening, but he's calling this like a mile marker. He's showing me like the highway marker, like you're at a certain point, and it's going to start to make difference in your life and for your child as well.
Yeah, so how will
good.
it affect her child?
What's that?
How will this job affect her child? Because it seems like, I feel like there's some sort of connection there, maybe?
Well, he's talking about the relationship, like improvement of relationship, balance.
Okay. Why would that happen, Erik? Why would this new job improve their relationship and therefore improve him and his life?
Well, he's saying it's energetic. There's a shift of energy because there's energy that's connected between the two of them. So he's calling it like a catalyst of energy. And he also says, and there's some that you haven't seen yet, more to come.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's all because I got this.
Job.
And thank you. And it's maybe because of the scalar energy
It could
that I had done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You'll see there's more coming.
Oh, awesome.
And she deserves it. This is a woman who deserves it. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Good.
And I have a reading with you, Michelle, but it's not until March. Is there any way that you get cancellations sometime?
Very rarely. Sometimes I do, but if you check with me, if you just email me and check with me whenever I have one, I'll do the very best that I can. But I know it's a long.
Well, otherwise I'll wait. It's okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Okay. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you too.
Bye.
She's delightful. All right, so let's see. We got somebody. Oopsie. Look again, babe. 757 area code. Hi there. How you doing?
Good evening, Elisa. Good evening, Michelle. This is Andre.
Hi, Andre. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and you guys touched a very important topic for me. Topic of being able
from
to
Virginia
speak.
Beach. Yeah.
Yes,
right?
From Virginia Beach.
Yes.
Exactly.
I remember.
Yes. The topic of speaking and the throat chakra and being able to communicate clearly is very important for me, because sometimes I did not have like I could not express myself very well, and I would just wait, and then all the thoughts came 5-10 minutes later in the conversation. So my question is, my wife's parents are coming to the United States, and this is usually most difficult time for me to get to communicate with them and to my wife during this time. Is there any suggestion from Erik, like what do I need to know this time? What is most important for me to know how I can be better communicated?
Andre, is she in the U.S. now?
My wife is in the U.S., but her parents are coming from out of state, and usually that's the hardest time when we get to communicate with each other.
Oh, my condolences on that one. Oh, my parents-in-law, oof. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're challenges that are meant to help us grow. And sometimes parents-in-laws are here to help us grow our communication skills and our diplomacy. But go ahead, Erik. You know best.
Erik is actually saying to you something to keep in mind is he says, be honest with yourself, but take breaks. Take time out. He goes, if you're able to, because he says that it can be a little bit intense at times. And so he says it's important that you are able to take a break away from it. But he's also showing, are you, because he keeps showing like colleagues at work. So are you like with people at work a lot, or Like, what's going to be happening during that time? Because he says take a break. Like,
I'm not sure because I'm right now in between jobs. I'm in between jobs right now, searching for the job right now.
Okay. Oh, okay. Hang on a second. Let me see. Okay, what he's saying is that you're completing a cycle right now, so you're going to have some sort of a connection with other people. He says that there's a lot of worry in your energy right now, and there's a little bit of an issue with balance. And he says so because of the circumstances and everything too, but you do have a job coming. So whatever this is, I don't know if you have an application out or something, but you have a job coming. And he keeps saying to your situation, like, not to put your focus and worry about that, because he says there's a happy ending to your situation, but he keeps saying to take time out for yourself, because your balance is so heavy on worrying, like so heavy on things that he says, like, give yourself a little bit of a break because you're putting a lot of worry on things that haven't happened or aren't going to happen.
Andre, that is you. You worry a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's showing me that he's putting
when you worry, you just have to take a deep breath and say, dude, I'm an eternal being. What's the worst that can happen to me? And
Andre, I got to tell you, because Eric's like, he's doing the timeout with his hand, but because he's saying that by focusing on some things that don't need to happen, you're going to end up manifesting more issues for yourself that you don't need. That they're experiences that you don't have to go through. So he says, like, look at the things that you can do something about. And if there's something that's popping up that you say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do about this, I'm worried that this is going to happen, or I'm going to go through this, he says if you need to allow yourself to kind of walk through it and say, what's the worst that could happen, then do it. But he says don't spend your energy that you have no control over, and make sure that you say, wait a minute, I've got a choice here. I can choose to say, hey, you know what? The best thing is going to come out of this no matter what it is, even if it looks bad in the beginning. He says it's going to be for me. Things happen for me, not to me. But he says to be able to let go of it and practice letting go, because you're putting so much energy on some things that don't need to happen that you're creating additional circumstances and lessons that
roadblocks
you don't need to go through. Yeah.
Right.
How to
All
let
right,
it go.
Andre. Go for that job. Remember, everything's going to be fine. I tell people, actually I tell myself too, that, when I'm struggling and when I'm in a deep pit, I try to elevate myself to a 30,000 feet in the air view and look down on my life and see it as a chessboard. And then, do I want to be one of the pawns being moved around by life and its circumstances, or do I want to be the chess player that moves those chess pieces around? And we do have a choice. We actually do have a choice.
Yes.
So, Andre, the best of luck to you, darling. I have a very soft spot, and I think Erik too. Very soft spot in my heart for Andre from Virginia Beach.
Yes, he says happy ending, Andre. Happy ending.
Yes. All right, got somebody from the 304 area code. Hi there, how you doing?
Hello. This is Gretchen from West Virginia. How are you?
Hello.
Virginia. Wait, what city
I love you so much.
What city in West Virginia are you?
Clarksburg. Wonderful downtown Clarksburg.
Go, awesome.
Okay, so, oh my goodness, I'm having trouble deciding which question to ask. Let's go with this. As you know, I've had some scalar work done. I'm wondering, is there anything I can watch for that will let me know that, yes, in fact, it really is doing what it's supposed to do? Any physical things, because I had the microbiome done and a tune-up.
Well, let me ask Michelle this. Michelle, Gretchen, what's your the first initial of your last name again?
K.
K. Yes, I know who you are then. Do I need to get you to do an energy read on her for tandem healing?
Let's see. No. What Erik is saying is she's just in the process, like this is right in the very beginning right now. There's no attachments on there. There is a little bit of a like some subconscious energy that might have a little bit of trouble clearing. But I've got to tell you, what's coming to me is not so much in the body right now. Is what I'm being shown is having some like physical, like abundance. There's some sort of a flow, but also spiritual connection as well. Because Erik's pointing up to the head, like the pineal gland. Are you working spiritually? Like, are you trying to connect with your guides?
Not so much lately. I'm kind of in a lull, I guess, in that respect. I seem to cycle through, like I get real heavy duty with my spiritual practice, and then I kind of like, step back a little, and I think that's kind of where I am now. So not really so much as I should be.
Sounds
because
like
there's a shift. There's a shift in your energy, and this has to do with like a shift from fatigue to having more like little pockets of energy, like feeling little bursts of energy. But it's not going to happen all like overnight. It's let's see if Erik can give me a time. Like over the next 3 weeks, you're going to start to notice some shifts in energy because your sleep was a little broken up before.
Yeah,
like
exactly. It seems like it's getting a wee little bit better, but I wasn't sure. Because I've struggled with sleep.
That's the first thing that he's showing me physically. It has to do with like your energy, like the balance in your body. He's also showing me that there's like a hormone balance as well, and he's showing me some work with the stomach. Like, did you have some digestive problems previous?
Yeah, off and on.
Happening there as well. So you might find like your body trying to regulate, like just like you're going to the bathroom and that sort of thing is going to regulate.
I've also been trying to, like take supplements and pre and probiotics and, and I'm also working on the subconscious part, that I am worthy and deserving and all of that, because I've struggled with that too.
Man. You are.
Absolutely.
And that, my dear, that is like Erik says, that is one of the biggest things that you can do is keep working with the, how you're speaking to yourself, all of that, because the subconscious is the part that's got to catch up, right? The conscious mind knows what it wants, and your body knows what it wants. So you want to speak to your cells and speak to the subconscious. But Erik, so just to kind of go over, Erik says that it's the energy, improvement of energy. He also says clarity. So some of that fatigue, it's like having a mental fog lifted, like a bit of fatigue lifted. And so there's, he's also saying like a spiritual connection, like a partnership. And this is a guide. This is like coming together with spirit.
I have been asking for assistance.
I don't want to run into the other show. We're out of time. You guys, the microbiome optimization, I think Erik's going to do a sale here pretty soon. So don't order it yet, please. Just wait. And anyway, check out Michelle Gray at healing-arts.com. And I love you all. Love you, Erik. Love you, Michelle.
Love you, too. Love you, Mama.
Wonderful giving, everyone. I love you.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving. Awesome. Love you, everybody.
Bye-bye.